Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to another episode of the Serene View. I'm Serene, your host, and today with me is a gentleman that I found to be my Indian twin. We totally agreed on like most things when we started discussing this session, and I am like really happy to be having him here on my show for this week. And what we're talking about is, I think, something that's very close to the heart of a lot of business leaders right now, which is it's a new year. We've had 2 years of COVID. How are we going to increase my business performance this year? Now, before we start, I would love to get Aman to introduce himself. So, Aman, if you could just let us know more about you.
Sure. Thanks, Serene. It's really nice to be here on the show. And hey, everyone. My name's Aman. I am based in India at the moment, and what I do is I actually help organizations and individuals improve their performance. Obviously, performance improvement is done in a variety of ways. I could do it via coaching or facilitation or consulting, in the OD space. And the area that I actually specialize in is using strength psychology in the space of development. So that's a
I
little
was
bit about me.
expecting so much more, right? I know, aren't you going to tell us about your mother, your father, your grandmother, and all the other, all the other people in your lives? Yes, yes. So I'm completely prejudiced, right? I really think that Indians come by and they will introduce their entire family to you, right? This is my grandma, my uncle, my family. Yes,
This
but
is my glass of water.
all right. Well, let's get down to business, really. I mean, Aman, I would really like to discuss what we have talked about today, right? Which is really, improving performance. How can companies effectively increase performance? And if, as business leaders, how can we do that? But before we start, let's start by defining performance. And what do we mean when we say performance?
Yeah, I think it's a very important question, Serene. One of the one of the first things that we need to do before we can say whether or not somebody is performing, before you can actually get to the end or the middle of somebody's work and say, okay, can we just test whether they've performed? You got to figure out right at the beginning what is it that you're going to call performance. So the parameters you got to define, early on, and those parameters could be anything. So, for example, if you're in the airline space, performance could actually mean on time arrival. Performance could mean, most importantly, safety. Performance could mean, fuel efficiency. Performance could mean revenue per ticket, things like that. And uh, and if your context is not airline, if your context is, let's say, restaurants, then performance could mean something entirely different. So one of the things I think all of us need to understand, that performance isn't always just one thing, and it completely depends upon the context that we're talking about. So performance of a frontline customer service associate and the performance of a chief financial officer could be different things.
Yes. And I think for those of you who are on the show with us, let us know. I mean, how do you define performance, right? Because when we say we are improving performance, are we looking at the performance of the individual? Are we looking at the performance of the team? Are we looking at the performance of the organization, right? So, what kind of performance are you looking for? And actually, your answers would help us as well to shape this discussion, so we can give you the suggestions that we think will be helpful. For your needs. So are you really looking at how do I get my people to perform better? How do I get my team to perform better? How do I get my entire organization to perform better? And I also put an article up yesterday about different types of performance, right? Tactical performance. How well are we doing according to our strategy, which is how well can we hit the targets we've set for this year, for example? and what is called strategic performance, which is how well can we deviate from our strategy, how well can we adapt to the changing circumstances, how well can we innovate, be creative, and do something outside of the box. And that is, I hate to say that it is more important after COVID, but I really believe that there is more volatility after COVID, more uncertainty, and therefore just being more aware, being more emergent is become more important. Okay, so let us know. Catherine is here with us. Catherine, hi, Catherine. Catherine is saying hi to you, Aman, and also, hey, so what you would like to know is how to embed individual performance so that it is in line with our company's one. And I think that is a brilliant question. How do we get individuals to pull together so that they are doing well in the direction that the company would like to see, right? We're all pulling together and going in the direction that we all want to go as a team. So that's a great question. Do you want to address that first, or should we? Do you want to come back to it?
I think we can address it right away, and if the conversation comes around to it again, we'll take it up again. But I think yes, again, the organization has certain goals. For example, Serene and I, we run in the space of organization development, organization change, talent development, and in an organization such as ours, what are we looking at now? We're looking at delivering change in organizations, delivering growth and development in organizations. If that is the organization's agenda, then everyone that works in an organization such as Serene's or mine, our performance also needs to be in line with that. So everything that we do should therefore be targeted towards, okay, how do we go about creating change? If that clarity isn't there, then what happens is individuals may feel, for example, a salesperson may feel, oh, I'm actually working so hard, I'm actually going out there and I'm doing so many meetings and I'm building so many proposals and I'm actually bringing in so much business, and they're thinking they're doing a great job, and they are actually, but we're not sure yet whether what the way in which they are contributing, whether that is actually helping us serve our customers better, because which is what we wanted. Are you bringing the right type of customers in? Do those customers, when they come in, have clarity about what they're going to get out of it? What is the sales process built like? Is it only about getting the numbers in, or is it about finding the right customers, handing them over in the right way? Those will then be individual performance goals that are more closely aligned with the organization's goals. And if we don't do that, if we don't pay enough attention to that, then people get uh, what happens, and this happens everywhere, right? Individuals feel that they're putting in so much effort, they think they're doing well, and they are, that is true, they are putting in effort, blood, sweat, toil, but and then suddenly they're surprised at the end when people are unhappy, when the organization's not done well, where their bonuses get hit, and then in the end it's a surprise for everyone that, oh wait, all that effort that you were putting in was not really in line with where the organization wanted to go.
And I think last week I had a conversation with Denise in the last episode, and we really talked about how we need to devolve, right? We need to devolve what we are really looking at in terms of strategy, in terms of the big picture, down into individual, down perhaps even into not just individual departments, but individual persons, to let each person know how exactly they are contributing to the larger mission of the company. And if it sounds like a lot of work, well, from 25 years in HR, let me tell you this, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's not easy to do. And I will say this, right, which is the ability to get them, to get each individual to know which exact piece they are contributing to the organization is useful in two ways. One, as you have rightly mentioned, Aman, we know that what they're doing is actually in line with what we want them to do. But more importantly, it is that feeling of purpose, of meaning, of my work actually contributes to a larger cause than just myself. And I
Absolutely.
think that is also invaluable in getting people to put forth the best of themselves. Because last week we were talking about mediocrity and why is it that people just devolve into I'm just putting in my time and I just want to like get by, right? And
Yeah.
I think that is totally in line with what you're saying. So I hope that answers your question, Catherine. But if you want to like talk to us more, just throw in the comments, let us know what you think about it. For the rest of you as well, if you have anything that you would like us to discuss, by all means. But before we go into that, we would
If I
like to
may,
sure, go on.
sorry, if I may just add one more perspective to what you were saying, Serene. It's absolutely important, like you said. Uh, you know, Unfortunately, the way organizations are structured currently and have been structured historically is that goals are set here. And like you're pointing out, if goals are set only by a few people, and these goals need to be delivered by people here, 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 and here, if those goals are not cascaded, understood, embraced at each level, then obviously, there's going to be a gap between what is planned here and what is delivered here. If you don't want that gap to happen, as you can see, leadership at all levels has the responsibility of understanding the goals, translating them, communicating them, understanding those goals, translating them, communicating them, uh, reiterating them at every meeting. So, one of the things that may become clear to you as you see what I'm trying to say is that the leader's role, if you are in a leadership role, whether you're in a leadership role at this level in the org or here or here or here, a big chunk of that role is communicating with, explaining to, listening to, clarifying, and a whole lot of that. If you're not the kind of person who enjoys that, if you're not the kind of person who enjoys conversations with people, if you're not the kind of person who revels in explaining things to people, then maybe leadership is not a role that you should take on, because leadership is a whole lot of a whole lot of people interaction. If you don't have the patience for it, don't take on a people leadership role. Take on a technical expert role. But if you're going to play the role of a leader, you're going to have to communicate and translate constantly.
And I think 2 weeks ago we had Aya Hilton on, and we discussed this, right? Which is this, all the decisions are set on top and merely like transmitted down. And I think we both agree that in this world that we currently live in, this post-COVID, really fast-changing world, that that's not going to cut it anymore. No, this small central decision making isn't going to cut it. We need decision making at every level. We need everyone in the organization to be making sense of what's happening out there, bringing back the information, discussing it, and this whole sense making and decision making needs to happen at every level. And in the past, when things change very slowly, we can have, right, a central, let's say, C-suite, making all the decisions, and let's like everybody else just implementing it. That's just not going to happen. And I think this communicating, right, this two-way communication, asking for information, figuring out what's happening, bringing the information up, transmitting the information down, transmitting it just sideways even, that is going to be increasingly something that can make or break companies. So I think, I agree with you, right? If you don't want to communicate, right, don't be a leader. Go be something else.
Don't be late. If you don't want to communicate, don't want to engage, don't want to include, if you prefer working alone, don't be a leader.
Yes, correct. You have someone has come. Hi. Prashant has said hello. Great to see you. If you have anything that you want to know about performance, Prashant, for yourself, for your team, for your organization, well, we have the expert right here, and he will give you the golden key, the secret, ingredients to making every single performance work. And then Catherine says she's listening very intensely, and she's in line with what we say. It's really about cascading, about offering a vision where employees are part of it. Yes, and for her, it is top down, so that it can be lived bottom up, right? So I think it's two ways, right? from the top down, certainly, obviously, leaders are expected to have a direction. The more chaotic, the more we look to them for a direction. But at the same time, that sense making has to be both ways. It really has to be. And yes, so if you have more, like just share with us, let's talk to us. And let's go into something that is a little bit more intriguing and something we were going to talk about before that, which is this idea of improving performance, right? What are we going to do to improve performance? And why are we even like, maybe we should go into the why, right? Like, why are we even bothering to talk about strengths versus weaknesses?
Well, there's multiple reasons, Serene. One, of course, is the performance angle, which is what we're going to look at. But the other angle is equally important, and regrettably, the world of business and organizations, we sometimes forget about the second aspect. The second aspect that we forget about is that, look, performance is actually being delivered by human beings, and we're human beings. And human beings are actually they're affected by many things, their energy, their enthusiasm, their motivation, their health. These are things that aren't static. They keep changing. They get affected by the environment, and depending on their energy, enthusiasm, motivation, health, all of that, depending on all of that is performance. So strengths, and you will talk a little bit more about that. Strengths versus weakness focus actually affects human beings not only at a performance level but also at an emotional, at a motivational level, and those are two reasons why I think we need to talk about it.
Right. I think what we should do right now is perhaps just define strengths a little bit.
Yeah,
Define strengths, define weaknesses. Let's talk a little bit about this. I mean, what is the strengths and weaknesses that we are talking
fantastic.
about?
So fantastic. The traditional view is a strength is something that you're good at, and a weakness is something that you're not good at. That is the traditional view. The strength psychology view is not that. The strength psychology view is that a strength is something that when you're indulging in, it energizes you, it doesn't drain you. uh, you can actually do it with enthusiasm, energy, interest, longevity, consistency. A weakness, on the other hand, is something that drains you, that you find it hard to do over a long period, an area in which you cannot do something consistently enough. So it's not so much about ability, it is about appetite. So if you have an appetite for something, if you can approach something with zest and energy and motivation, that's a strength. If you don't have an appetite for something, if you avoid doing it, and when you have to do it, you do it with a sense of, oh my God, I have to do this goddamn thing, and you want to run away from it as quickly as you can, clearly you can't do it with a great degree of commitment or enthusiasm or even consistency. What happens is when you indulge in the former, right, two things happen. Because you like doing it, you can do it for longer, you get better at it, you can show more interest in it, you want to do more research in it. Over time, you actually become great at it, you excel in it. And when you slave away at something, which is the latter, it's something that you're not interested in, you're constantly looking for excuses to get away from it, or you do it with an, oh my God, let me just get over with this. You never make much progress in that area.
So I'm going to say this, right, which is, your definition of weakness really sounds like me with housework or my kid with homework. Stuff that you go like, must I do this, right? And I'm sure a lot of business leaders listening in are going like, no, look, wait, we can't just have people only do what they like to do, right? I mean, what kind of organization is it if nobody wants to do the, more tiresome or bothersome work? That cannot be it, right? What do you think of that?
Well, Two things there, Serene. One is leaders. Leaders get a lot of stick, and I just want to remind all of us that leaders are also human beings. I know for a fact that what I just said also happens to leaders. I have actually worked with managing directors and their teams on their strengths. I have worked with startup founders on their strengths. I have coached them, and this is a struggle that even leaders feel with. Well, sorry, this is a struggle that even leaders go through. They also have areas which they naturally like to do and they want to do more of, and there are areas that bother them, that they want to do less of. And actually, this is reflected in their leadership style. I have worked not with one, but with two different leaders who are essentially not energized by conversation. They don't like to have conversations with people. They don't like to, have a dialogue. They just want to say something and get it done and over with. Oh, I've told you get this done, and you don't talk to me about it. And it affects their leadership style, because what it means is that they're the kind of leader that will not engage in conversation too much, and they'd much rather just tell you what needs to be done and get on with it. So if you see, even a leader has areas that they struggle with, and therefore I suspect that leaders will also understand that people under them also face this struggle.
I
Now,
think there's two things that I want to highlight that right at this point, which is this. Okay, the first is I think a fundamental belief in people is necessary. I think Aman believes in people. I believe in people. One of the things I tell every client and leader I work with is this: I believe people go to work to do a good job. People do not go to work to skive off and to sabotage your company and to be as lazy as they can and get out of as much work as they can. I do not believe that about people. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, and it may surprise people to hear this, that people, there will always be someone who likes the one thing that you hate to do the most. So let me say it this way, okay, which is I was once a bookkeeper for about 3 months. It is the worst thing I have ever done in my life. I did not pass a single day of those 3 months with my books actually tallying each other. Sometimes there was more money, sometimes there was less. I was constantly, anxious because the books were never tallied. But I know people for whom bookkeeping is a joy, who love bookkeeping and who truly want to do it. Right. So for those of us who are thinking, no, no, if I do it this way, people are just not going to work, right? They're just going to like do all the fluffy, nice bits of the job and forget about all the crap work. That is not true. I don't think that of people. I think people will step up to the plate if they have to. And I think you can always find somebody who will do what we hate, right? Tiffany has come back with another definition, right? So she says she recently started a book called Transpersonal Leadership in Action: How to Lead Beyond the Ego. And the authors advocate full leadership expression, radical, ethically authentic leader. And they highlight this importance of bringing our values, our beliefs, our purpose to full consciousness and acting on them to manage our ego. So, what do you think about this, in relation to strength?
Well, I think it's very close. The understanding is very, very close, because if you look at if you look at the strengths of any individual, you will find that their values are very closely reflected in those strengths. So I think it's there's a lot of correlation in what you're asking.
Gosh, I'm going to put out to all of you, right? Think a little bit about these definitions of strength that we're talking about. Do you find it true for yourself? Do you find that you excel in certain areas and you're naturally good at it? And there are certain areas where, if you never had to do it for the rest of your life, nothing will make you happier, right? Do you find that to be true? And when that is true for you or not true for you, just share with us how you think about it and what you are doing about the situation. So let's look a little bit beyond this discussion, right? Which is, okay, I mean, so I have strengths, so I have weaknesses. So what? I mean, how does that play in any way to the performance of my organization?
Yeah, in many ways, Serene. I think the bookkeeping example you gave was fantastic because you see, it may be an important thing for me to do before I hire somebody as a bookkeeper to understand whether that person's strengths lie in the area of bookkeeping. Now, what kind of strengths may actually play out in a bookkeeping role? So, strengths, I'm assuming right now, strengths such as detail orientation, strengths such as critical thinking, strengths such as efficiency, strengths such as results focus. These may be some strengths that coming to mind that will be required in there. If I was to now, if I know that these are the strengths that are required in there, it may be a good idea before I hire you for a bookkeeping job to ask you to actually put you through a strengths assessment or and ask you, okay, how are these how are you with respect to these areas? Do you like detail orientation? Do you like critical thinking? And is it something that you enjoy? Is it something that you can do for long periods? And if the answer there is, if your answer is, well, I can do a little bit of detail, I don't mind doing detail for about an hour, but after an hour, I have to do something else because that's only about the amount of detail I can handle. Now, I know that bookkeeping is going to be 7 hours of detailed work. And I know that, therefore, you may not be the best fit for a bookkeeping role because for 1 hour, you'll do well. For the rest of the 6 hours, you're going to struggle. I know it's going to impact your performance. I know it's going to impact your mental well-being, and you're only going to do it for 3 to 6 months. And during those 3 to 6 months, both you and I will struggle. And this is something that we can do. Well, we can do this right at the beginning. We can do this after somebody's been hired. Uh, so, helping people understand what their strengths are and helping them see whether or not they're in line with the role, helping them use certain strengths in that role so that they can get the most out of it. So, for example, even in, you may not have detail orientation as a strength, but you may have, you may, let's say, have critical thinking as a strength. And I may encourage you saying, okay, do you believe that critical thinking is a strength that you use in bookkeeping? And you may say, yeah, actually, I have to critically examine every entry and see whether it fits and all of that. So, can I encourage you to use your critical thinking a little more? So, it may actually help your performance out there. And this we can do for pretty much every role.
Well, Suchitra has basically Suchi has come back to say something which I think is kind of the crux of the problem, right? She says there are tasks I don't draw satisfaction from, but over
Yes.
time, consistency and exposure have made me good at these tasks, and I deliver results. But to do so, I must detach from natural energy and ego. Now, if you think about our entire education system in India, in Singapore, across most of Asia, and actually I think most of the world, it's
Yeah.
all about drilling kids to do stuff, right? Okay, you don't like math, never mind. We'll make you keep doing it until you can get an A in math, regardless of whether you like it or not, regardless of whether you're good at it naturally or not.
Yeah.
And that is the crux of the matter, right? So I mean, what do you have to say about it? I mean, if I can perform, I can do it. Does it matter that it's not my strength?
Well, I think Suchitra's asked a very important question. I think this is a big question that many people may have, and I'd like to hear what Suchitra's response to this is. Now, here's the thing: we can all manage to, with a little bit of investment of, like she's saying, time, consistency, energy, exposure, we can become better at things that we don't necessarily like to do. And the question here then is, okay, you've become better, you've invested so much energy. There's three things I'd like to add. One is the tasks that you don't particularly like doing, what percentage of your day do they consume? If it is only consuming 20 or 30% of your day, and the rest of the 70 to 80% of your day is still made up of tasks that actually give you energy, then you can do it, because you're losing energy 30% of the time, and you're still gaining energy from or satisfaction from 70% of your job. The balance of satisfaction or energy is still in your favor. The problem begins when this, the amount of time you're spending in your day is, let's say, 50% or 60% on things that are not naturally energizing. Remember, you've taught yourself to be good at this. You're committed. You're a good worker. You're disciplined, right? You sit down, you do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. 60% of your day, you're drained. 40%, you gain energy. You still end the day at an energy deficit, at a satisfaction deficit. You do this for 3 months, 6 months, you start experiencing symptoms of burnout. And that is something to be careful about. So as long as we are supposed to work on our weakness areas, non-energizing areas, in a limited quantity, I think all of us can handle that. When we are forced to focus, make our entire job role or entire career in a weakness area, then it becomes really hard to handle. And it doesn't only affect our satisfaction on the job, it affects our well-being. We are more irritable, we are tired, it spoils our experience of life, and then we start wanting to change jobs, change careers, and all of that stuff. And that's what really happens. So I want to hear from Suchitra whether that is something she identifies with.
Yes. And I think if you think about all the midlife crises that people experience, right, being pushed into jobs, be a doctor, be an engineer, be an architect, and after doing that for 20 years, going like, no, this is really not what I want to do with my life, right? And going through this midlife crisis, I think that ties a lot into this, right? She
Absolutely.
says,
If
yes,
I,
thank you. That's why we need holidays to escape from our jobs. Sadly, due to pandemic travel restrictions, then the burnout, the anxiety, the great
and
resignation.
that's exactly what I wanted to point out. Now, if you look at if you survey any country, you survey India, you survey China, you survey Singapore, you survey the UK, the US, Europe, anywhere you survey worker satisfaction, you find that we have got really low worker job satisfaction. Think about why that is. Part of the reason why
Singapore
that
is 9%. We are 9% in Singapore, lowest in
is,
all of Asia. Yes.
so 81% people are saying no, my job sucks. Now, part of the reason, I don't know, I'm not going to claim that that's the only reason, but part of the reason why the world over people think the jobs suck is because they haven't become conscious of this fact that, look, there are things that energize me, and I'm not getting to do those things, and I'm stuck doing things that don't energize me, and they've not been able to recalibrate this. Now, what a strengths coach does, obviously, is makes you aware of what your strengths are, helps you see how you can find an opportunity to use your strengths more at work and to reduce doing the non-energizing stuff, to collaborate, like Serene pointed out. If you got a team, give it to somebody else. I'll give you my example, right? My example is like this. I suck at time management. All right. I'm miserable at it. I hate keeping a track of stuff, which is why I don't make a career in project management. I don't like keeping track of tasks. As a result of which, I frequently miss meetings. So, what do I do? After much struggle, after trying to do it myself and failing, and remember, I've had a 23-year long career. So, I've tried it for very long. And I've invested an insane amount of time and effort trying to become good at it, and I'm still not good at it. I have I have gone from terrible to mediocre, right? That's the other thing I want to tell us. If you're going to invest a whole lot of your time and energy in fixing weakness areas, you're going to go from, oh, I used to be terrible at it, but now I don't suck at it. Great. Congratulations. You've become average. Is that what you wanted? Is that what your organization wants? No, we're looking for excellence. So therefore, take something that you're good at, put in your time, energy, effort, so that you can go from good to excellent.
Yeah.
So what did
I
you do? Yes,
I'm
sorry,
going
sir.
to come back to this in a short while because I think time management is one of those things that
Yeah.
everybody, right, in school, in organizations, in societies, your parents will tell you this. Everyone has to manage time management. Everyone has to master time management. And yet, that is something that you're saying, it's not your strength. And Tiffany has this like brilliant question in relation to that, which is, are strengths the same as skills?
I think it's a great question. They're not. Not according to the field of strength psychology. Many people use it interchangeably, but I think we need to delineate these. A skill, if you have skill in something, you have an ability to do it. For example, do I have the ability to drive? Is driving a skill I possess? Yes. Right? Do I enjoy driving? Do I like to take long drives? Do I want to drive cross country? Am I ready to drive at a moment's notice? No, I'm not. I detest it. I think it's an abominable thing. So when you're going to hire me, if you want to hire me as a driver, are you going to hire me? I have the skill. It's not a strength.
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel stronger. It doesn't turn me into an exceptional driver. And therefore, they're different things.
To quote from Marie Kondo, we will say this, right? Does it spark joy? Does it make you happy to do it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as Jean has, and thanks Jean for coming by, has said, she says, well-being is extremely important. I mean, it's not just can you grit your teeth and get through your work day, but can you get through your work day and maintain or even enhance your well-being, right? So I think that's really what we are looking at, right, at this point in
And I
time.
want to, I really like what Gene talked about. And you talked about gritting your teeth. I want to take that analogy one step forward. When you're gritting your teeth, what are you doing? What part of your nervous system is active? This is the sympathetic nervous system, the one that is responsible for increased blood flow, higher adrenaline, higher cortisol, increased heart rate, higher blood pressure. Right? When you're doing, I must do it, right? I must finish this Excel sheet, right? You're in an elevated nervous system arousal state. You do this every day, you're going to develop mental and physical health problems because you're in an elevated state of arousal. When are you going to work with, I am really enjoying this job? When your heart rate is lower, your blood pressure is lower, when your heart is singing. If you don't do that, it's going to affect your well being. And we also know the other statistic is that worker well being has been impacted the world over. So, if organizations are looking at improving engagement, commitment, enthusiasm, performance, and well being, they must look at work through a strengths lens. You can't say, I'm going to hire people and just force fit them and I'm going to expect them to do well. It's not worked for so many years. You've not gotten excellent performance. You've gotten mediocrity. Most organizations are mediocre. You have a bell curve that says 75% of my people are going to be average, and I'm happy with that. Right? I mean, that's what organizations are essentially, and it's an open admission that the bulk of our people are going to be mediocre. And if the bulk of your people are mediocre, then you're probably a mediocre organization as well. So you're not gunning for excellence if you just want to force fit people in. So if you want excellence, if you want well-being, if you want great culture, you've got to look at strengths.
And I think Catherine has said it very well, right, in her comment. She says, in this case, even more so, feedback and empowerment of leadership is important to the people, right? I mean, what the leaders do is even more important. And I want to tie that to Suchitra's, comment that look at performance appraisal, right? The whole performance appraisal is based on things that don't work. I mean, when we as leaders sit down and give our feedback and empowerment, what do we give our feedback on? Oh, Aman, I think your time management system is really terrible. I'm going to send you to a time management course, right? And like Suchi says, that's what the whole performance appraisal is all about. So what do you suggest leaders do instead?
And it's not just the performance appraisal system. Actually, Suchitra, Serene, everyone, actually, this negativity focus, this focus on what is missing, affects all spheres of our lives. It affects education, like Serene pointed out. We're not interested in what a student is great at. We don't encourage that. We want to fix what they suck at. Oh, you're great at English, but your math is terrible. You're great at history, but you know what, your Sanskrit sucks. So let's put you into extra classes for math and Sanskrit and all of that stuff. And as a result, what do you have? You have people who are mediocre at Sanskrit and math instead of being brilliant at history or English or whatever else. And this is exactly what happens in the medical field. This is exactly what happens in the organization as well. We don't encourage and build what you're brilliant at. We're just identifying what your gaps are. And what do? You say, oh, so you walk away from a performance appraisal conversation saying, I put in the last so many months of blood, sweat, toil, effort, energy, enthusiasm, commitment, and I tried to do my best. What do I get at the end of it? I get told what I suck at. So you walk away feeling slightly dejected. Your motivation is down a few points anyway. And what do you expect it to do? Whatever ounce of motivation you have left, now you're supposed to plow it into fixing something that you would have anyway been good at if you loved doing it. So you say, okay, I know you're not good at it, you suck at it. Um, why don't you work harder at it? So then you go and work hard at that. You end up being mediocre at that. You ignore what you were great at because now your focus and attention is on this. So you never become great. You just get stuck here in mediocrity.
Well, so she says that it's called the deficit or gap mindset, and she called up her ex-boss on it, and she did not get a bit of it. Okay, well, maybe, well, another thing that she said is also it sounds like a massive job redesigned. Um,
Absolutely.
I think from Catherine as well. She says people at work need to speak up on what they like and what not, so that the leadership, the leaders can put teams together, where you mix up strengths, and so that one as a team one becomes incredible, and the individuals can grow or do where they are good at. And I will
Absolutely.
say this, right, from actually meeting lots of people, that there are so many people who do not know what their true brilliance is. This is what I feel is the greatest waste of human potential in the world. You know,
Absolutely.
because your whole life, your teachers have been telling you that, Naman, you need to have better time management. You need to do your math more. Go practice your math. This is what you need to focus on. And actually, what I want to do right now is Tiffany has given me a very interesting case, and I want you to almost do a live coaching on this. I'm going to spring this on you again. Okay, so for those of you who are listening to this is not arranged whatsoever. Tiffany has just written this in, and I'm going to put Aman on the spot and make him do this, which is this.
Okay.
From a character strengths perspective, VIA, her top five strengths are kindness, leadership, creativity, perspective, and teamwork. And then from a work strengths perspective, which is Clifton, her top strengths are strategic, connectedness, learner, intellection, and arranger. And you see, they are dissimilar from skills on top of it. So I think this is a very typical thing, right? Which is, I have no idea what my strengths are. I go and take a couple of assessments. I still have no idea what my strengths are. So
Yeah.
what would be your advice at this point, Ahmad?
Usually this is a process that takes long because you know the report is only step one, and the report has to follow about a 90-minute conversation where Tiffany and I would explore each of these strengths together with her. So the questions I may ask Tiffany eh, are around, okay, tell me about a time when you use strategic. How do you use your strategic strength? How do you use your connectedness strength? I'm going to mine for stories and examples of how each of these strengths play out in her work. It's going to give us both information on A, is she using them? B, in which manner is she using them? What kind of results does she get from them? How does she feel when she's using them? We're going to identify uh, whether there is an opportunity for her to start using them more in order for more. joy and more effectiveness to permeate her day, and things like that. I'm also going to have to ask Tiffany a question, saying, okay, you know these strengths, you now know how you go about using them. What's the question that you have? What do you want to do with this now?
I think we should do this as a group, right? So, all of you who are here online with us, right? We want you to think about. I mean, forget about all these assessments. Let's throw it out the window, right? Just think about one day at work, like in your entire life, right? What is the one day at work which was the most joyous, the most energizing, the most motivating, right? And think about what exactly were you doing on that day. How exactly, who was with you, what were you doing, what kind of situations were you in, what did you use of yourself, right? And if you don't mind to share with us, like, just throw it into the comments, so that we can talk about it. And literally, right, what are we both trying to mine for? We are trying to mine for, when are you the strongest? What do we mean by strength? When do you feel the strongest?
When do you
What
feel?
Sorry,
Yes.
go on. And then don't let
No,
me
no,
interrupt. Like, what has to
yeah,
happen for you to feel stronger?
I,
So go,
I
please
got
go.
excited because when I just loved how you're putting it. This is exactly what it is. When you're doing something, are you feeling strong or you're feeling weak? If you're feeling strong, if you're feeling like you're in flow, great. That's probably a strength area. If you're feeling weak, if you're feeling like you're struggling, it's probably not a strength area. And so Serene's advice is great. Sit down, think about your work day, your work week, and try and list down those things. Okay, what are the things that I do that actually make me feel really strong and in flow? What are the things that actually prevent me from feeling that way? That'll give you an idea of what your strengths might be, what your non-strengths might be. And to answer Tiffany's question, Tiffany, you want to tie it together and you want to have a longer conversation. You know where to reach me, and we'll have that longer conversation.
Yes, Aman will do you a favor and talk to you about it. Yes. And the thing is, Catherine says that it's really true, right? That people need to be, people need to feel strong at work, right? And one of the things is, as Tiffany says, right? Have you seen or heard organizations where, leaders within the organization have enabled leaders, and they have rewired their brains through regular practice, or reflection? I guess the word is, can I rewire my strengths? Can I through regular practice or reflection, rewire who I am?
It's a controversial question for me, and theoretically, theoretically, we know that neuroplasticity is possible. Theoretically, we know that it is possible to rewire our brain to do different things. Here's the catch: the things that we choose to do are determined by our strengths and our values. So you take any individual, and if you ask them, hey, is there something that you taught yourself to do? Is there something that you became really really good at? And uh, and they'll tell you that, yeah, I did this. But if you go one step deeper into the conversation and ask them, why did you choose to become good at this thing and not that thing? That choice will tell you that they made a choice that was in line with their strengths, their values. Why does one person become choose to become great at rock climbing? Why does another person choose to become great at guitar? Why does a third person choose to become great at advanced math? Why don't we have one person who wants, who says, I'm going to become great at all of them? I know I'm great at advanced maths, but I'm also going to become a champion rock climber. Very rare, extremely rare. Most people who claim that they are achievers, who've rewired themselves, who have done it on the basis of sheer grit, they have chosen things that they naturally enjoy. And the research around grit has also said this. You can demonstrate grit in areas that are your strengths. You're right.
I,
I mean, Rafael Nadal can demonstrate grit because he loves playing tennis. You ask him to demonstrate grit in math, it's not going to happen.
okay, so I maybe let me put it this way, right? Which is, I truly believe this, which is that every great endeavor requires time, effort, and persistence, right? I may have a natural talent for tennis, but for me to be an adult would require me to put in an enormous years and years and years of learning, of practice, of competing, of persistence. Right? And
Yes.
my question is very simple, which is knowing that it's going to need that much of you, would you rather put that effort, time, energy into something that brings you joy or something that brings you misery? And really the choice is yours, right? So we're not saying that just because something is your strength that you do will just coast in life and you can still be at the top, because quite obviously that is not true. And that is like, there is no way that is true. No matter what your strength is, in which area you want to be one of the greats, you still have to put in the effort. And what do you want to put the effort into, right? So a couple of answers have come back as to like when they feel the strongest. So Catherine says that she feels joyous when she's in line with her peers, in line with her clients. And Tiffany has said that her best days are when she problem solve with others and shepherd people towards insight. Okay. Uh, Johnson says that his passion is teaching. Lisa says that hers, she feels strongest when her efforts are recognized by her clients, bosses, or peers, and more so when she meets her goals and provide simple solutions to a complex problems. Now, one of the things that I want all of you just kind of listen to this and realize is they are all different. We haven't had a repeating answer yet. I will tell you that mine is talking. You may have realized this, but talking brings me joy. Okay, what is yours, Aman?
Absolutely. Like you said earlier, Serene, I think you and I are twins. I get most joy, I guess most energized, and I feel most in a state of flow when I'm in interaction with another human being or a set of other human beings, which is why I coach and I facilitate and I teach.
Yeah. So I think I'm scrolling through them backwards again. I just want people to realize this, right? It's not the same. And we are all different. And honestly, it's nothing to do with the assessment, right? Forget about the assessment. Just think about what brings me joy, what am I strongest at, and then think about, okay, how can I? Who was it who said earlier? I think Sutri says, massively job redesign my current job. Even if I have to join I won't call it the great resignation, the great job hopping, to get to a position where this is true of me. Like whatever it is that I've written down is true of me 80% of the time, or even better, 100% of the time, right?
Absolutely.
When what do you think? I mean, what would be your advice to people, right? Because I'm sure, all right, okay, so people are coming in and says, yep, yes, yes, true. Lisa, everyone is saying like true. I am so shocked that you guys are so optimistic, because my first reaction as a Singaporean is, Aman, I got to feed my family. I have a family and I need a paycheck, right? Do you think that I can just, airy fairy pick my dream job? That happens in another country. It doesn't happen in Singapore, where, we're all realists. So what's your answer to that, Aman?
Sorry, you'll have to say the question for me again, Serene.
Yeah, which is what happens if I am in a job? Okay, it's
Yeah.
not my, it's not my strengths job,
Yeah.
but I need the paycheck. I have a family to feed. What do I do from here, right? I mean, obviously, I would love to be in a job where I'm happy every day. I'm using my strengths. But where do I go from where I am, which is a normal job, to that? How do I proceed?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Serene. There's a couple of things that come to mind immediately. One, of course, is if, and I understand, let's respect what you hear in Singapore, what I also hear in India, and what we might hear the world over. People will say, look, I may not always have the option, like Suchitra is saying, to redesign my job. I may not have the option to switch careers like you did. And I can't do any of that. There is no scope for me to redesign my job. Uh, my organization doesn't agree that I can drop this element, add that element, include my strengths, reduce my weaknesses. I don't have the option. Uh, and I don't want to switch careers. So here are two other options. One, in addition to what we talked, two other options are: one, see if you can hire an assistant, if that or a team member, and if you can hive off parts of your role to to a collaborator, and let them do those things, which is what I have done. I recently started working with an executive assistant, and I've given them responsibility of my schedule, calendar, meetings, etc. So I don't need to do it anymore. I have also been collaborating with designers, with workshop designers, uh, and so that I don't have to do all the thinking work myself, and I can focus myself more on the, relating, communicating, leading pieces. And so that is one way to do it. Now, if that also does not exist, then what we can do is recognize that, okay, my 8 or 9 hours inside here are going to be really draining. Then actively find something outside that 9 hour period which refuels you, that replenishes you. So create a life outside those 9 hours that is built around strengths. I know many people who've successfully done this, my own maternal grandfather included. My maternal grandfather had a government job, and he did very well in that job, incidentally. But on the side, he was also an author. He'd gone into a government job in order to feed his family, but essentially he was a poet. Now, what he did was, in order to give himself joy, is 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, every day without fail, he sat at a desk and he wrote. Over the course of his government career, he also authored about 80 books. So,
Wow. All
so,
right.
so what you may end up doing, assuming that you don't have the option of career switching, job redesign, and hiring an assistant or collaborators, the other option I would say is build a parallel career outside your work, which just fills you with so much energy that it makes the other job tolerable.
Well, from our listeners, there are also a couple of suggestions. So from Catherine,
Yes,
who is a top leader herself, she says, "Talk with your leader," and I do agree. I mean, I know a lot of us think rather poorly of our bosses, but most of the leaders that I've met truly want to do right by their people.
I
I think
agree.
this is that assumption, right? I mean that people do want to do, they do want to do right by their people, and I would say go and talk to your leader and have a heart to heart to say that, hey, it's not that I don't want to do certain part of this work, but it's just I could be so much more effective if it could be redesigned. And not just talk to your leader, right? Maybe talk with your team as well. Let's sit down and let's go. What are the best parts of people? What are the things that people would want to do? Right? With Suchi, she's saying it's not about a dream job, right? Isn't that an oxymoron? No, dream job not an oxymoron. But knowing how you can leverage your strength the most throughout the day. And I will share this as an example, right? Which is a lot of times when we think about salespeople, who do we think about? We think about, kind of like the typical car salesman, right? Extroverted, talkative, somebody who's a people person and so on. One of the most effective salespeople I know, effective in the sense of the amount sold per year. This is in the 8 digits, 7 or 8 digits. Is an engineer who doesn't like talking, is a totally not a people person, but who can do the best research you have ever seen on the engineering systems that he pitches to large companies. And obviously, he pitches to other engineers who want nothing but the big research. Don't come and meet with me, send me all the details, I'll read it and I'll decide if this is based on the merits of the system. He's very effective, right? So there are many, many ways to get to where you need to go. And Lisa was saying that it's not easy to convert her passion into a career, but hard work would pay off. Eventually, slowly, the power of networking is essential. So, what do you think? I mean, do you think that is true that people can kind of slowly get to their good job? Because, as she also says, getting a good paycheck is kind of tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Lisa, everything that happens is eventually and slowly. you know, I've heard that thing that people say that every overnight success that you know about, they put in many years before they became that overnight success. So I'm hoping that in your case also you will after quite a few years you will achieve that overnight success that you're looking for. So yes. And networking, sure, networking is important, but if I would to give you a tip, it would be to do more of the things that energize you. Like Suchitra also pointed out, like Serene was also saying, discover the things that you're strong at, discover the things that you get most, reward and outcome from, and find a way of doing more of that. Just because you've chosen a new line doesn't mean that you need to do it like every other person does it. Put your own signature on it. Do it in the Lisa way. Do it in a way that Lisa would enjoy doing it. And I think that'll give you more reward than anything else.
I think that we are getting very similar questions. So Tiffany says, how does she present herself to showcase that value, right? The value that she can bring, to I guess to showcase her strength to her employers, or to her leaders, and also Catherine talks about what do we expect or wait for employees to know what's important to them, right? So it is a two-way conversation, really.
Yeah.
How do we as leaders, let people know what is important to them? How do we as employees or even subordinates let our leaders know? And Johnson talked about how we can delink role, right? We can collaborate. We may not be able to hire an extra person, but we may work with a team of three or four, right? And go and say that, hey, guess what? This part of your job that you hate, I really love. This part of my job that I hate, do you want it? Can we trade? Can we trade stuff to do? I think that is a really good idea. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to try and answer Tiffany's question, how do you showcase that value? There's a couple of things to do there. List your strengths and list how you use your strengths on your LinkedIn, on your website, on your CV. Mention clearly that, look, this is what I do very well. This is how I go about it. I remember your strengths. It said strategic. So how do you use your strategicness? How do you use your connectedness? Give examples. In your conversations, on your profile, on your website, about how you actually go about doing this, so that it becomes clear to everybody who reads that or listens to you, saying, okay, Tiffany is great at connectedness. Here's how she uses it. Here's how she gets outcomes for us as customers.
And I think Tiffany has a recommendation as well for a book about how to have productive conversations with staff. I guess from just my own experience as a leader, and also my experience as a coach, I will say this, right, which is there are so many things that you can do right or do wrong, but ultimately the one thing that you must do right is you must go there and you must be real. You must genuinely want to have a good conversation. You must be open to the answers that you may be getting to your staff, and you must truly listen and take some action at the end of it. Right? So beyond that, I think tips, tricks, technique can always be learned. But just even if you know nothing, just go there with a genuine desire to help and an openness to the answers that you may be getting, and I think you should be good. I have Tiffany has another good question, but before the good question, I just want to showcase a whole bunch of like compliments for you, Aman, to say that yes, you are a great coach. She also helps others to co-create. I think it is. I lost it. Yeah, Catherine says that you are 5 star. And then also, Lisa says thank you to you. And I want to kind of move on from this to another very good question that she has put up, which is we haven't talked about purpose, right? We haven't talked about purpose, meaning, for instance, when you work for Coca-Cola as an employee, it cannot be fulfilling, or at least for her. How can I perform when the products or services are not in line with the meaning that I want to give in my life? How important is this purpose, do you think, in living our strengths?
It's a good question, and I think I remember one of the one of the guys I really admire in this field of well, not just field of strength psychology, but the field of HR and human development and organizational performance is a guy called Marcus Buckingham. And and this question of purpose was asked to Marcus as well, and he said something very interesting about it. He said, people talk about the why. Why am I doing this? What is the big why in my day, in my life? And on the other hand, you've got the what. What do I do? And he gave this brilliant example. He said, look, if your desire is to serve people, if serving others is what really gives you joy, remember, this is the what, the activity that you do. If serving others is the what that gives you joy, and you say, okay, churches are a great place for me to work, I'm going to go and work for a church because a church is basically about serving others. And you go and join a church and they give you the job of an accountant or a bookkeeper. You're not going to be very happy in that job because because the why of the church is to serve people, but the what that you are doing is not satisfying to you because the the what is about accounting or bookkeeping, and it's not about service. So you know you might actually find more satisfaction from working at a soup kitchen serving soup than working as an accountant. So even if you're working at Coca-Cola, you need to ask yourself, okay, what is it that brings me joy? If serving others brings me joy, can I find a job at Coca-Cola that allows me to serve others? Can I go and join the corporate social responsibility group or ESG group or safety audit group or learning and development group, or diversity and inclusion group at Coca-Cola, because that allows me to be of service to others. And even within Coca-Cola, it may still give me the opportunity to be of service to others. I don't know if I'm answering your question though.
I just say this, right? I think I am from Gen X, and I realized this, right? Which is this whole idea of I want to join an organization that's doing something good for the world. I don't want to join, for example, an organization that's destroying the environment or that is doing something bad to the world. I have to say this though, that this is really not a consideration for someone like myself who is, I have bills to pay, I have families to feed, and so on. I'm not saying that I want to go out there and work for an organization that's actively polluting the world. But a lot of the times, I think the real consideration is the actual work I'm doing benefiting the world, as opposed to is the work that the whole entire conglomerate is doing benefiting the world. But I think that for younger people, that is becoming more and more of a concern, right? I mean, is this organization that I've joined actually benefiting the world? And I don't know about those of you who are on this call. I mean, how do you feel about it? Is this the bigger purpose of the organization something that's really important to you? Is it more that, as long as the work that I do is beneficial, not so much the whole organization, something like closer to how I feel? No, let us know how you feel about it. But I think as a leader, we are sometimes stuck in between, right? Which is um, we want to do what's good, but it does not translate to every single decision is good for people. And you may find, for example, that a cost-cutting measure will impact certain employees, and moving your factory from one area to another may impact the economic status of the area that you're leaving. So there are so many considerations beyond, and as a leader, sometimes we struggle with that. So, what do you think, Aman? Do you think that our strengths can help us in those situations? Do you think that, that is should be another talk for 1 month later, where Aman will come back and tell us all about the purpose and how we can live with purpose?
Yeah, I think it may be a it may be a broader topic to explore in another conversation. I think that's absolutely right. But I kind of agree with both Marcus Buckingham, who I mentioned earlier, and what you're saying, Serene, because it's like this. You see, uh, for me, for example, if I was to work for the United Nations for world peace, but the job meant that I had to sit and work alone, I would turn down the job, because I will that is a job I will not take. It's not a job I will last in. I will do a job which allows me to work with other human beings as part of a team, as contributing to other people on a day-to-day basis, even if that means that that the job is for an organization that is not doing work for world peace, because my day-to-day gives me a sense of satisfaction and reward in that job.
Well, I we are we're over an hour actually, so 1 hour 50 minutes. Are there any last questions or comments that you want to say? I think Tiffany has put in a last comment. She says that B cause and corporate sustainability is super important, and we must lead by example for the world to shift. That's in her opinion, and I think I would say honestly that I agree with you, and a lot of it is a little bit like the discussion about dream jobs, right? I agree with you. I will also say that many people are constrained by perhaps what is available in their area. So if like Coca-Cola is the only big employer here, what am I going to do, right? Also, what is available in their personal lives. I have a family to feed, things like that. And I will say this, which is purpose is probably really important, and probably of differing importance to different people. But ultimately, when we look at your life and what brings you joy, we would truly hope, right, that the work that you do daily really brings you joy. And if that work can only bring you joy if you are with an organization that is sustainable, that is doing the world good, then that is a consideration you have to put in. Right? And yes, Suchi says, thank you. Amazing conversation tonight. Also, thanks from Tiffany, who says that you have a really good memory. Yes. Well, so the rest of you, any last questions, any last comments, last pearls of wisdoms you want to share with us? I will also ask Aman the same thing, right? What is the, like, if you want to leave us with one last comment, what is the one thing you want us to remember?
Uh, well, first of all, Serene, I'd just like to say that you've hosted an excellent conversation today. You invited such great comments from our participants and made them part of this conversation. You've added your own clarifications to everything that I was trying to say, and actually helped make this sharper, wider, broader, deeper, and all of that stuff. So great being here, actually.
Thank you.
And
That's very nice of you. Thank you.
yeah, and
I'm really happy that you said it. Yes. Thank you.
yeah. And from a, I think, just closing perspective, from a performance perspective, I just want to reiterate that look, the biggest factor in performance is desire. And this is the one thing people probably miss. It's not so much about external incentives that drive performance. It is that internal desire that actually drives performance. So if you're looking, if for yourself or for the people you manage or for the organization you run, you really want to decode, if you want to hack performance, you've got to hack hack the desire that people have. If you can tap into what that desire is, And if you can help them channelize that desire, you'll probably see performance. But if you don't go there, then we have a problem.
Okay, so we have a couple of other things that has come in. So Catherine has said that this is a great discussion. Lisa has really like you can't wait to hear from Aman. Aman, see now you have to come back next month. I'm gonna do another one on purpose. Yes, and also Tiffany says thank you, Aman, for bringing awareness to positive psychology and to individual well-being. I think just as a close, I want to just share, if you want to talk more to Aman, he is on LinkedIn, as you have already noticed. He also has his own blog, which has his very beautiful, very handsome face on it. And he has a TED Talk that you can talk to. Yes. Yeah. And I think yes, this is the TED Talk. And I think just as a close, I want to say this, right, which is, I've been in HR 25 years and I've been coaching for about 6 years, 5 to 6 years now. I think there is so much waste of human beings around the world. When we go to work, what is our thought of work? Is it like, oh God, okay, fine? Or is it like, oh, it's just a job, right? I need to feed myself, I need to feed my family, so I have to put that in. Now, I'm not saying that all of your circumstances allow you to get a dream job, allow you to go to a place where you really flourish. But think about all the little ways, right? Like think about Aman's maternal grandfather. Think about Einstein, who was a patents clerk and then wrote his theory of relativity at home at night, right? Think of all these people and think of yourself. Think of the think of what it will mean if you can truly flourish, thrive, be the best version of yourself. Whether it be what would it mean for you, what would it mean for those around you who truly loved you, and what would it mean for the world when you make that contribution? So think about it that way, and both Maman and I hope that you can take heart and perhaps move towards somewhere where you can spark a little bit more joy, right, in yourself and in the world. So I really thank Aman today for giving us his time, for giving us all of his insights. I think it was wonderful. Thank you for all of you for coming to join me. Suchi, Johnson, Catherine, Lisa, who else was there? Tiffany, of course, and all of you for coming by. Jean, yes. Thank you so much. And lastly, I want to invite all of you. So next week I usually have this on Thursday, but next week is Women's Week, and so we are going to do it on International Women's Day on the 8th, and Tiffany and I are going to talk about women, and we are going to talk about really this kind of burnt out of women and women really feeling, tired, exhausted by the whole COVID. And where can we go as women? What can we do to find the resources that we need, to move forward? So I hope you can join Tiffany and me next week on International Women's Day for the next review. So thank you very much, Aman. Thank you for all of you for coming by, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
people. Thanks, Reen.
Yes, thank you so much, people. And yes, one last for Lisa. Oh, yes, see you next week, Lisa. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.